This video shows the works of Magnus Dahlander in Brooklyn. Magnus Dahlander was born in Sutter, Sweden. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, 1861. And he died in the same small city, which is northwest of Stockholm, in 1951. Almost made it to 90 years old, but we'll give him 90. And when he was 27, he came to Brooklyn and was here for 8 years and did a lot of great work. So he easily makes it into the Brooklyn School based on that 8-year period. These are some of his drawings of houses that he built. He mostly did houses, attached houses, also apartment buildings. And I have not gone in any of these buildings that I've been showing in the various videos, but I did include a picture here of one of his houses on Decatur Street in Bed-Stuy, just to show you that the level of detail goes inside too. It's not just on the outside. But this house on Decatur Street shows a lot of high wainscoting around the walls and very attractive floor and ceiling lamp, as well as windows. And then the picture in the lower right I've put in, it's the house that got me started on this whole thing of doing videos of various buildings and houses by what I put together as the Brooklyn School. So the first house that I did a video of was this house, 487 Clinton, and I've later learned that it was by Magnus Dahlander, and that's just what got me going on the whole thing of trying to catalog all the works by these great Brooklyn School architects. So let's look at Magnus Dahlander's work in Brooklyn. Here's another set of Magnus Dahlander's houses that he did with Langston and Dahlander, who he was teamed up with when he first started working here in Brooklyn. And it goes down to 571. We're on Jefferson Avenue. In Bed-Stuy. I love this one that juts out here. A lot of variation. There's 575 with a huge arch. All the way here to the last brown one. And maybe 569 was one of his too. It seems odd that it would be all by itself. Kind of goes with the rest. So we're just east of Lewis Avenue. Let's take a look. North and south. And it's Jefferson Avenue. I just wanted to make sure it was an avenue, not a street. Here in Bed-Stuy, Magnus Dahlander. And I do have a date year for this row. It was 1891. Here's another pair of houses designed by Magnus Dahlander, built in 1891 at 873 and 875 St. Mark's Avenue, between Brooklyn and Kingston Avenues. On this block that I just keep coming back to, on St. Mark's Avenue, that's got a lot of beautiful homes designed by members of the Brooklyn School. Magnus Dahlander, 1891. Here we are on Pacific Street, 1159 through 67. 1891, Magnus Dahlander. On a street, the block loaded with potential. These buildings down here are getting gut renovated. And a lot of nice other houses. There's a house that's boarded up, could be fixed up. Magnus Dahlander, 1891. So here's a set of
Magnus Dahlander houses on Bainbridge Street, starting at 137. And we're walking west. So these are all along the north side of the street. And it goes down to 113. Wow, he went all out on this block. This is why he's one of the members of the Brooklyn School. And then this house is undergoing renovation behind the scaffolding. And it might be the last house of his at 113. Magnus Dahlander, late 1880s, early 1890s, during his 8-year stint here in the US before he went back to Sweden. Just gotta find out about this house on Clinton Street in Brooklyn, Fort Greene. Let's take a closer look and get the address, and I'll see if I can find out some history on it. .487. What an arch. I like the way the brownstone next door at 483 matches it. Just beautiful. I always notice this from Fulton Street. This is Fulton Street right here. Take another look at it and see what we can find out. There used to be an elevated subway line that ran over Fulton Street, and now it's underground. Clinton, Washington is the station here. And since I think this is my final video, I'll go back to where I started at 487 Clinton Avenue by Magnus Dahlander, the building that I'm in love with, at least from the outside, and that great arch. Another Loire Valley chateau, as they say. I've learned a lot by filming all these houses and reading the guidebooks and critiques, and I've learned more about Brooklyn too. I don't know if you can make it out, but it has a nice address, 487. Magnus Dahlander. I just wanted to catch a little bit of the flavor of Prospect Heights in Brooklyn, where another one of Magnus Dahlander designed and built another one of his houses. So we're going to walk down Carlton Avenue from St. Mark's Place down to Bergen Street. Now the corner of Bergen and Carlton Avenue is one of his houses, and it's actually 3 townhouses that are built side by side to look like one mansion, which is kind of a neat architectural trick from the late 1800s. And I don't know if it's still done today, but it worked back then. So here is his three-part house, one of the townhouses of this three-house mansion. Just is on the market right now. It's being negotiated for a sale price of like 3.7 million just for 1/3. But the most significant architectural feature of this house is on the Bergen Street side, which is this entry arch, which is described as being Romanesque or Romanesque revival. So it's really an impressive house. It has no private parking. You have to park on the street, and this is Bergen Street with beautiful brownstones on each side. It's kind of unique on this street that you have to go up some steps to get up to the stoop level. They go up from there. It's just due to the geography of this area. And here's the back of the three-part townhouse we just looked at. So this was built in 1893, and Magnus Dahlander was from Sweden, and he came over here to do his thing for 8 years, like between ages 27 and 35, and he met his wife over here who was also from Sweden. So they got married, and then they moved back to Sweden, and then she passed away and at a relatively young age, and he remarried. And like a lot of great architects, he lived till very old age. He was almost 90 years old. He was either 88 or 89. He lived until 1951. He was he was born in 1862. So there it is. It's each house is like 3,000 square feet plus, with 4 or 5 bedrooms. So it's another one of his houses here in Brooklyn. And across Bergen Street from Magnus Dahlander's house is this house, which has always intrigued me. It's painted black with orange trim. It's a brownstone, but it's a different tint. And it's extra tall. And it just is really an interesting, beautiful house here at Bergen Street and Carlton Avenue in Prospect Heights, Brooklyn. It's always nice when you're an architect to get a commission of multiple houses, including this row of 15 houses on Sterling Place in Crown Heights, designed by Magnus Dahlander and Axel Hedman, 1894. 897 through 925 Sterling Place. Romanesque Revival and Renaissance Revival combined. And from what I read, Magnus Dahlander was more into Romanesque revival, and Axel Hedman was more into Renaissance revival. Both from Sweden. And it reminds me of the row of townhouses that I looked at by Rudolf Daus. He had like 26 houses in Park Slope on 4th Street. So let's just walk to the end of the row here. They all face south, so they get a lot of sun. And they're set back a little bit, so they have little yards. Most still have their stoops. In fact, they might all still have their stoops. Here's the last one at 897. Sterling Place, looking back east. Magnus Dahlander, Axel Hedman. 1894, Sterling Place in Crown Heights. Probably built at the same time as the Mount Lebanon Baptist Church. Some of the houses here on the south side of Decatur Street, starting with 242. And I also have the date as the address of 256. Were designed by Magnus Dahlander. And I don't have the year, but it'd be late 1880s through early 1890s. This house even has a plaque on it. I'd love to go up and read it. I think it's another plaque having to do with the Stuyvesant Heights Historic District. So it's a beautiful block. There's a little Episcopal church across the street. Here's 256. So this is right up there with any of the prime blocks of Bed-Stuy. I've talked about Hancock Street, but there's several streets that are just architectural powerhouses here. Some of these houses are undergoing renovation. Get great light here on the north side of the street facing south. I mean, look at the terracotta detailing here with the tower. So we're between Lewis Avenue and Stuyvesant Avenue in Crown Heights. It's real quiet at this time of the day. It's like 1:30 in the afternoon. And I just letting the camera roll because there's always something to look at here. I'm gonna walk over to Bainbridge just to see one more set of houses designed by Magnus Dahlander. Says it's like a Greek house, fraternity or sorority. I don't know what college is around here though. More renovation. Another detached house, 381. we're just south of Atlantic Avenue. I mean, just north of Atlantic Avenue. All right, let me look for that other set of houses by Magnus Dahlander on Bainbridge here at Stuyvesant. The next building designed by Magnus Dahlander, along with a fellow Swede, Axel Hedman, is here on Vanderbilt Avenue. The addresses of 673 through 681, and in an area where there's a lot of really nice brownstone type buildings, this one does stand out. It's a little more significant, very high floor to ceiling heights, and we will take another look at it from across the street. But I also wanted to show you this Victorian era school right next door. It's now been converted into apartments, I believe. So this is on Vanderbilt at Sterling. Sterling place, I read, was named after a Scottish general in the Revolutionary War who helped the Americans, and his name was Alexander Sterling with an I, but they changed it to an E for the street name. And this is a typical range of architectural styles. This is an Art Deco building across the street. We're right near Grand Army Plaza, which leads to Prospect Park, going that way, and then looking north down Vanderbilt Avenue this way towards the Clinton Hill neighborhood. We're in the Prospect Heights neighborhood, and this is another old Victorian school, which is a private school. It says North Star Academy. So let's take another look at Magnus Dahlander's multi-building structure. Now, since he just lived here in Brooklyn for 8 years, between 1888 and 1896, he was prolific as a designer when he was in the US, when he was like 27 to 35 years old. And then he went back and had a long, renowned career back in Sweden. But from what I read, you see the one conical peak to the one tower. I guess there was another one at this other jut out of the building. So built between 1888 and 1896 here at 673 to 681 Vanderbilt Avenue in the Prospect Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn.